Hello, my name is Beck and welcome to the Rapid Fire book tag. I was tagged by Upside Down Books, so I will leave her video linked down below, but I've already filmed this tag once and I forgot to click record on my audio, so that's wonderful. I've already half done this tag, so I'm just going to try and rapidly fire my way through these questions again so I can get to the point that I left off on. Ebook or physical book? Definitely physical book. Don't really read ebooks. Should probably read more ebooks, and especially at my library, but I am very overwhelmed with my current TBR physically. Even though it's, under 40 books, it's still quite a lot, and I've been reading less and I've got less momentum this year, so I'm a little bit intimidated. So just physical books, at least for the moment. Paperback or hardback? Definitely paperback. In Australia, hardbacks are really expensive anyway and paperbacks are readily available, so I definitely prefer paperback. Also, I love the really fat paperbacks that are really floppy, and so because I read a lot of adult fantasy, I can just prop a book open and not hurt my wrist when I'm reading it. So definitely paperbacks rather than hardbacks. Online or in-store book shopping? Definitely in-store, but lately it's been online, obviously because of the pandemic and the lockdown. Did a book haul recently and all of those I got online, but recently, a couple of days ago, I actually went into a physical bookstore for the first time in ages, and I definitely caved and I bought a book while I was there. Trilogies or series? I like both, and it's going to be really hard for me to decide. I really like long series like Brandon Sanderson, Joe Abercrombie, Robin Hobb, but also it's really nice to know that a trilogy is going to wrap up in just a trilogy, and so it'll cost me less money to finish a series, which isn't that bad because if I love an author, I don't mind supporting them, but I don't know. I guess there's a lot longer to wait if it's a longer series. So I'll probably, for the sake of this question, just say trilogy because it's easier. But in no way does that diminish my love for longer series. Heroes or villains? Again, I'm really struggling to pick. Maybe I'll do heroes, but that's only for the sake of me having to pick one, because I love it when a character is written really well and has flaws, and if your hero is pretty much flawless, and if your villain is just a caricature of a villain who does this evil laugh and monologues their entire plan, I don't care. You've got to have some kind of flawed elements to both characters, and they've both got to believe in what they're doing. And I prefer morally grey characters because nobody in real life is all a hero or all evil. Well, generally speaking. So I like seeing that varying degree in the books I read, especially in Joe Abercrombie, because he doesn't really have any heroes or villains. I thought the character in the first trilogy he wrote was an absolute villain, and then in a short story you get to read from that character's perspective, and I actually sided with him. So the fact that you can do that and capture your characters from different angles to make you empathize with them and go, actually, they're not as bad as I thought. That's what a good character is to me. So for the sake of the question, heroes, because I love defeating evil, but I also really like a good villain or a good morally grey character if they're written really well. A book you want everyone to read? Trader's Blade by Sebastian de Castell. Adult fantasy. It's not a trilogy, but it's 4 books in a series, so it's a quartet. It's got a Three Musketeers vibe. It's pretty short, and the voice of the main character is quite funny and sardonic as well. So that's my recommendation for here. Also Brandon Sanderson, so here is my Brandon Sanderson plug. Please read Way of Kings, Warbreaker, Alloy of Law, and Mistborn. Not necessarily in that order, but just in general. Pick up Brandon Sanderson. Recommend an underrated book, and that is Book of the Unnamed Midwife. I love this book, and it is a post-apocalyptic book, and it's about obviously a midwife who is also a nurse, and she has this virus that everyone else has contracted, and she actually survives where most people pass away from it. There is a very small percentage of women that survive, and there is also a percentage of men that survive, but that percentage is skewed in favor of the men, and so she has to disguise herself as a man so she doesn't get, violently attacked and raped and assaulted and that kind of thing in this new world. And it does tackle really dark topics, especially of survival and what this character goes through, because you see her in a diary format and you see her in like a third person almost format, so you get to see her innermost thoughts and also what's happening to her and around her. And I like that variation because it really captured the world. It's just one of the most brilliant post-apocalyptic books that I've ever read, and I don't see anyone talk about it, and that's why I keep talking about it, because I want more people to read it. I think I read it this year and it's definitely been one of my favorites. The last book you finished, and this would be Grave Peril. Yes, I keep calling it Grave Mercy and it's Grave Peril. I read this Dresden book on audiobook, and I have quickly continued into reading book 4 on audiobook, Summer Night. So I'm loving this series, if you couldn't tell. Wizard Detective is what hooked me, and Dresden's character and his humour and his vulnerability and the magic and the mythology and the creatures in this world and the mysteries as well have really kept me in this series. The last book you bought, and that would be the next Dresden Files book, Summer Night. I bought that physically, but it is not within reaching distance, and I don't want to mess up my setup by getting up to find it, so I bought Summer Night, let it be known. Weirdest thing you've used as a bookmark? Another book, my phone, a clean tissue. Usually I just dog ear a book if I don't have a bookmark. I know, shock horror, but I don't really mind marking up my own books and denting them a little bit, especially if they're paperbacks that I can easily replace. If I'm doing the damage to it and it's my book, then it's my money, right? So I don't really care. But if I have a bookmark, I will usually use it instead of dog earing. I just don't usually have one on hand. Used books, yes or no? Yeah, of course. Top 3 favourite genres: post-apocalyptic, fantasy, and science fiction. Of course, I'd say urban fantasy as well, but I feel like that slots into fantasy in general, so I'm kind of lumping them together for the sake of 3 genres, including post-apocalyptic, because it's a genre that I don't talk about very much, but when I find a really good post-apocalyptic book, like Book of the Unnamed Midwife, it really quickly jumps to the top of my favourites list. Borrow or buy? I tend to buy because if I borrow stuff, usually it just sits around and I feel obligated to read it, and so of course I dig my heels in and I'm like, no, I'm not going to read it when I know that I'll probably enjoy what I've borrowed, but I don't know, it's this weird thing. I need to own the book myself in order to read it, and I'm trying to use my library more, but because I've still got books on my physical TBR, I'm trying to read those first and like get a significant chunk of that gone so that I can not feel as guilty borrowing a book from the library. Characters or plot? Character. Plot is important as well, and I want my characters to be doing something or working towards something, but if I don't care about character, then I ultimately don't care about plot. So I think character has to be favoured over character versus plot, even though I know they both work very well together, and that's the whole point, obviously, of a good book, them working together. Yeah, character. Character is definitely where it's at, because I can read character-driven books like Becky Chambers' series and it's completely fine. Or I can read a Brandon Sanderson and love the plot, but I also love his character work as well, so. Long or short books? Have we seen my channel? Do we know that I read long books? Oh man, I don't know, because I want to pick short books because at the moment my motivation is super low, and finishing some short books in between each long one has been keeping me going, but at the same time, when I finish a long book, I feel really accomplished, so I think I'm going to have to go with long book because I read a lot of stuff that's over 500 pages long. So for the sake of this question, long books, but I do love reading a quick, snappy urban fantasy, and usually they're like 300 to 400 pages, so kind of a ballpark between 400 to like 800 pages. That's my ideal reading size. Long or short chapters? Definitely short chapters, because again, it makes me feel like I'm reading faster. Anything to make me feel like I'm getting through a book faster honestly just helps my mental state, and I feel like I'm not alone in saying that. Name the first 3 books that you think of. Oathbringer, Stormfront, and Grave Peril, because it's sitting right there. Books that make you laugh or make you cry? Ooh, both. I prefer books I think that make me laugh though, because they're really easy to continue and pick up again. Whereas I know Little Life or A Little Life is probably going to make me cry, and I've been putting that off for like 4 years. So definitely books that make me laugh, because that's why I'm really enjoying Dresden at the moment, because he tends to throw out things and be in situations that are just quite funny, and I've laughed out loud quite a few times. So that is why I'm jumping into Dresden really hard with both feet, because it's amusing me and it's a fun thing to experience. I do love books that also make me cry, because if it elicits an emotional response in me, then I'm going to enjoy it. But at the moment, in the state of mind I'm in, where it's hard to motivate myself to read at the moment, I think I prefer books that make me laugh. Our world or fictional worlds? Definitely fictional worlds. I read too much fantasy and hard sci-fi for that to be very different, although any post-apocalyptic book that's set in our world and any urban fantasy that's set in our world I will enjoy, but I think I lean more into fantasy, which is not in our world. So not our world, that will be my answer. Audiobooks, yes or no? Big yes, love audiobooks. If you saw my Q&A, you know that I have listened to a lot of audiobooks. Do you ever judge a book by its cover? All the time, because I love to draw especially, so I tend to notice things if I look at them too long, like stuff is not in proportion, or there should have been more work in one section, like more detail. Book to movie or book to TV adaptations? This is hard again. I think it's book to TV because you have more space to unpack things and character and ideas, and you have more space for the plot to develop. So I'm just going to stick to TV series for this question, because a TV series that I really enjoyed lately was The Witcher. And even though it kind of threw me for 6 for a lot of the stuff that was going on because of the multiple timelines, I liked it more than I liked the books. At least book 2, Sword of Destiny. Oh, that's ironic, because next question is a movie or show you prefer to the book. And I literally just said The Witcher. So that's that question answered. And then the last question on this rapid fire book tag is series or standalones, and I would lean hard into series, even though sometimes I pick up a standalone in between. I tend to lean into series. So there you go, that is the rapid fire book tag. Let me know down below if you have any recommendations for post-apocalyptic, sci-fi and fantasy books, because I'm always looking for recommendations and I appreciate whatever you guys talk to me about. So I will chat to you in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to do this tag, you're tagged, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.